Reloading hunting ammunition requires some special considerations, which we're going to cover in this video. Gavin here from UltimateReloader.com. I'm back with Guy Miner. Thank you for joining us, Guy.
Of course.
We've got some familiar gear and a familiar rifle here.
We do. It's hunting season.
Yep.
And if it's not hunting season, it's real close to hunting season.
Yep.
And John's hunting rifle, my son's, and the gear that we used to build up some really nice hunting ammo, and that's what we've got to talk about today.
Yeah, the Bergara 7 Mag kind of won our best rifle under $900. It's not a contest so much, more like your purchasing exercise, right? We did a video and an article on that.
Yeah.
And you've done quite a bit of reloading with the Mac. I felt like that's a great product to highlight for this particular scenario. It's nice and simple. It's going to make reliable ammo.
Yeah, and it can make very high quality ammo.
Yes,
So
indeed.
that I like.
So check out those stories. This story is going to be focused on, so you want to load hunting ammunition. What are the things that you need to think about, and what are the things that you need to do to ensure your success?
Right. And I like to start with selecting the appropriate components, particularly the bullet.
Yes.
Match that bullet to the game that we're going after. What works really well on a 150-pound whitetail might not be the ticket for a 700-pound bull elk.
Yep.
So take a look at the game, take a look at the environment we're going to be working in. I know I had one hunt up in Alaska, 9 days up in the Arctic, and it rained or snowed every day. So that to me was a test of, well, the hunter, that was one test, but the rest of the ammo and the gun, all that stuff had to function in some pretty serious weather conditions.
And you could have serious temperature swings in Alaska as well. You could be below freezing in the morning and be up at who knows how hot, 90 degrees in the afternoon. And temperature stability of the powder is going to be a key consideration there.
Exactly. Your powder, and making sure that everything will work in a damp environment for a week or two or longer. Yeah, all that stuff. And then I think the last thing, last thing I'm going to talk about, I don't know that it's the least important, is the range you anticipate firing at. Are you likely to get that close-in shot, or we love our lever actions, but a lot of times they are best at modest ranges.
Sure.
And so are we going to need something where we can reach out there and smack that animal at 400 or 500 yards, or we might have to place the shot through a very narrow window in the vegetation?
Yep.
So a lot of precision required even if the range isn't far.
Here in our state of Washington, I would use the example of the west side hunt over the mountains towards the coast, or the east side. Where we are east of the mountains, typically you're going to see things at much greater ranges. Fortunately, we can shoot, even target shooting, at really extended ranges, a mile, whatever. But yeah, if you're in deep forest, if you're in thick brush, the chances are you're going to be in that close quarters, kind of 0 to 100 yards kind of a thing. Sometimes 40 yards, sometimes 60 yards. But out here, you could have a legitimate hunting scenario where you're at 400 yards or more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you're not familiar with this, it's the same thing in Oregon as it is in Washington. We've got this wet west side of those states, basically a rainforest in a lot of parts of it.
Yep.
And very close quarters, except in where they've done the logging, and you've got a big clear cut.
Yep.
And then over on the east side of the state, we actually live in a desert area. We get about 8 inches of rain a year.
Right.
And it's dry. People have no idea until they come out here and they don't see trees, they see sagebrush.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, what happened to Washington? Well, it's that the other Washington's over there.
Yep, it's a totally different hunting experience.
Very much so.
Yep, and then the primer and the case obviously are going to, be the last parts of that equation you think about when you're reloading ammunition. Are you going to use previously fired cases, or are you going to use brand new cases? Primers are going to be pretty versatile for hunting. If you're in a target scenario, you're going to think match versus standard. Occasionally you'll have a standard versus Magnum choice to make, but
Yes.
usually there's a prescribed primer for that cartridge.
It makes sense, and this is a 7 mag, so it has reasonably large charges of slow burning powder. Obviously, you want to go with a Magnum primer.
Yeah.
And as far as the cases go, I get pretty serious about my hunting, and I like to load up either brand new cases or once fired brass in my rifle for my hunt. For practice, I'll keep using those same old cases over and over and over again. But when I go to hunt, I want new. It just cuts down on the chance of something going wrong.
Right, definitely. Okay, so let's talk about the first consideration, the first major consideration, sizing. Tell me what you're thinking about with sizing.
Yeah, and I know that some of the manufacturers say you can load our cases right out of the box. I go ahead and resize them. I size them all. They come out of my dies so that they're all the same, and any problem with the necks, which often get banged up in shipping, that gets all smoothed out and everything's nice and round there. So I size them all first, and I full-length size my hunting rifle ammo for the most part. I have done some neck sizing over the years, but more and more I'm getting back to just going full-length resizing.
Same here.
And it just, that way, that cartridge feeds from the magazine up into that chamber just fine, and no trying to force it in there and slowing you down.
Right.
Yeah, I've had to do that. So I know exactly what that feels like. I bet a lot of our viewers do too.
Exactly.
It's like, that one didn't get sized quite enough.
Yeah, it's always a good idea to test chamber. If it's a live round, make sure that you're at the range, the muzzle is pointed downrange. You could throw the safety on as well. And I'm feeling, that bolt drop. You want the bolt to drop nice and smooth. You don't want to be, galling your lugs and your lug seats, or running into a situation where it's just difficult, in the field.
Right.
To chamber the round.
Yeah, and you never know when you might need that fast follow-up shot.
True.
And so, yeah, those things have got to just feed in there nice and slick.
Yeah, you could obviously use a case gauge. If you're reloading for a semi-auto hunting platform, that becomes all the more important. You can't just shove that bolt handle forward and drop it with force. It's got to happen on its own.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, the gun's it has one amount of force it can apply.
Yeah.
Because of the spring, and not like a bolt action where you can muscle it some if you have to.
For sizing for hunting ammunition, I'm also going to bump the shoulder a little bit more. So with the adjustment of the die up and down in the press, you can influence how far back that shoulder goes. For target ammunition, I'm at about 1/1000. And for hunting ammo or for semi-auto, I'm typically closer to 3/1000 shoulder pad.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, seating the primer. This is more important than some people realize, because if you don't seat the primer properly, the firing pin hits the primer, and the primer just moves forward in the primer pocket, and it may not detonate.
Yeah, it
may
may not go off at all, or you've got inconsistencies showing up in your ammo.
Yes.
And we're always looking for that tight SD and ES, even with our hunting ammo. And so if you can get those things seated all the same, we've got this wonderful
competition primer seater.
That thing is just so sweet. If you don't have that, and most of us don't, I don't, you can still do really, really well with most of the press-mounted priming tools, and also with the handhelds. And then we've used a couple of them. We had that Forster device that we tested earlier this year.
Bench one. Yep.
That did a really nice job too.
Yep.
So, but just pay attention to what you're doing. Get them all there, nice and just slightly less than flush, a little under flush.
Absolutely, a few thousandths of an inch, whatever it happens to be, for that combo of primer pocket and primer height. Yep.
Right. And sealing the primer comes up sometimes.
Yeah.
And I have done that. It was very funny when my wife asked me why I wanted some of her nail polish, and that's what I used to seal up some primers. She didn't have any clear. I was hoping she had clear. I had the prettiest primers in hunting camp that year.
Do you remember what color it was?
They were red.
Oh, nice.
Of course they were red, yeah.
Which actually looks like sealed primers on some types of military ammo and whatnot. That's funny. Another thing about nail polish is it makes very good light-duty Loctite for your threads. If you want something that isn't quite up to like the blue Loctite level, nail polish actually works really good for that, and it's a lot cheaper. Have you guys seen the price of Loctite lately? Tiny little jug, $17, $18. I mean,
wow.
Per ounce, it's almost like inkjet ink now.
Ouch, that
Yeah.
gets expensive.
The other place to look at sealing would be the bullet to case mouth interface.
Right.
I've seen that as well. But typically that is fluid tight. Now that would be a good test to do. Put some ammo in a creek around here for a month, take it back out and see if it fires and what the moisture level is.
We could do that.
That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, okay.
Cool. Okay, so priming, pretty important. Charging.
Charge the case. Now, a lot of times I'll hunt with a rifle that takes a real slow burning powder, and a lot of those have these really big granules, extruded powder. And getting a full charge of that, because I like as much as I can get in there usually, as much as, whatever the up close to max is, or maybe just a little short of it, maybe a little over, if you know your rifle and all that, you can do that.
And if worked up.
Yep.
Don't try that at home.
Work up your load. You may need to use a drop tube to get that consistency and get it all filled in there. When I'm working with a powder like that that's kind of a little more difficult to measure, that's when I've gone a lot to the electronic powder dispensers.
Yeah.
And you set it on whatever you want and hit it, and every charge, and it will measure it out. Otherwise, I'm back to the old style, which is fine, the powder trickler. It's kind of fun, works. So it just maybe a little slower.
And for big game, you're not going to be loading a whole bunch of cartridges. You might
hopefully not
40 with you, and that's way more than you will probably need. Yeah. This is where the precision is just going to take one more variable out of the whole equation. Let's talk about cartridge overall length and seating, and why don't you start with the story that you told me about when things go wrong?
I've got two things.
Okay.
Buddy of mine loaded too long. He had a 308, and he at the range he was very meticulous about his 308, and he was getting some great groups, and I didn't realize it, but everything he'd done was single loading it.
Right.
He had a Remington 700, had kind of a generous chamber, and he was putting those single loading. So we go to load up, they won't even fit in his magazine.
Whoops, over 2.8 inches, huh?
Yeah, it would not even fit in the magazine of his Remington, so I like, I've got some 308 ammo here if you want it, and he's like, nope, he only needed one.
Wow.
So put it in there, one and done, but
nice.
That lucked out. Now, my mistake was a little more of a problem.
Okay.
I also loaded a little bit long and didn't realize it, because even though they fit in the magazine of my rifle, my 30-06, and I'd been doing all my shooting, and I was shooting beautiful groups out there at 300 plus yards, no problem, good long heavy bullet. I didn't realize I actually had it slightly jammed into the lands and grooves. Didn't know that.
Right.
So I go on my hunt, I take my game, and I go to eject that round.
Yeah.
Bullet stays stuck in the barrel, the cartridge case comes out, and the powder dumps all through my action.
Oh,
and
man.
there I am in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah, and I've got this, and I'm looking at my rifle going, I'm dumb. Yeah, so took care of that. Just all it took was a rod to go ahead and tap the bullet out very gently, just hit it once, and it popped out. And then, of course, I had to take apart my rifle a bit and really clean all that powder out of the action, out of the magazine, out of the raceways. And oh.
This is where hand loading can be a double-edged sword. It can help your cause, and it can hurt your cause. And you just have to make sure, that's why we're doing this video, to think about all of the primary considerations, to tick all the boxes and make sure everything is going to work, and then it's the best of all worlds, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And testing your rifle ammo before you go is a really good idea, not just to see how it does at the range, but does it cycle through your gun properly?
Yeah.
And obviously, in the case of my friend and I, on those two examples, it didn't.
Right.
It wasn't as squared away as it should have been.
Yeah.
I took all my ammo home and I seated it all just a little bit deeper.
Yep.
It worked out fine.
I've been there. Similar scenario, having to seat a whole lot of bullets because didn't realize it at the time. They were too long. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, straight as possible. That's going to help in any particular case, hand loading, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of that comes with using good brass, and then also using good dies that are going to help everything stay straight, the bullet straight, the case neck straight, all that. And that pays off with good accuracy.
Yeah, this Mech Marksman, for instance, has the floating shell holder design so that the case can auto-align with the die. And that just kind of helps things line up better and can improve the bullet run out, definitely. Let's talk about neck tension and crimping. One thing I've learned recently is that, for instance, if you don't anneal your cases, you'll get more spring back in your case necks. Because it's harder, you force it down to a particular diameter, it just springs back with more force. And that can lower neck tension. And if your neck tension is low enough, then you're going to be more susceptible to bullets moving around and other issues. So just kind of could be counterintuitive that not annealing would make neck tension lower, but that can happen.
Interesting.
Yeah, so annealing is another step that can help with the consistency of your sizing and the setback of the shoulder. You know, those sorts of things.
Yes.
So another thing to think about in the process. Yep.
I was helping a reloader with his 257 Weatherby.
Nice.
And he did not, very nice, he did not understand that he wasn't getting the neck size down enough, that his dies weren't working with his brass.
Right.
And I took one of his cartridges, and I could actually spin the bullet with my fingers and pull it out.
Right.
And he was like,
it's handy, so you can check to make sure you have powder in there.
Yeah, yeah. So it was not very good ammo, frankly.
Right.
So we changed things up for him and got him back on track. So that worked out well. And then sometimes the question of crimping comes up. I like that with my revolver cartridges. I like it with my lever action tubular magazine cartridges. That crimp helps a lot. I haven't needed it to prevent the bullet moving forward on recoil with anything. Not even my 375 H&H. So the only things that I crimp are revolver and lever action. You might want to add a crimp for some reason.
Sometimes for semi-auto it's nice. If you have a canyon-lured bullet and you have a place for that crimp to go, can assist with feeding. You know, not that I've had specific feeding problems because of uncrimped.
But it can help.
Case necks, yeah.
Yep. And think about one of those factory crimp dies for that too. They are nice. They just real easy to use.
Yep, I like that. So you're talking here about dummy rounds. Tell me about your philosophy there.
Yeah, I like actually making up some dummy rounds, especially when I'm working with either a new cartridge or new bullets, and I want to get an idea what's going to, and you're going to burn up a little bit of your components. You're going to use a few cases and a few bullets. No primer in them. I don't use a primer in those.
Right.
And
you can pull the bullets later though, so it's not like you're completely
They're not gone forever.
Yeah.
And I very clearly mark them because I don't want my dummy rounds to be in my pocket when I go elk hunting.
Yeah,
this is not good. Oh, let me load this up in here. Yeah. Oh, click. Bye, elk.
Yeah, exactly.
Not good. So I like dummy rounds mostly to check the function of the rifle when I'm at home. And I had a real problematic Winchester Model 70 that did not want to feed. And I did some work on the magazine spring and all that, but mostly what I did was really adjusted my hand loads to find a length that it liked.
Right.
And when I got that, then we were trouble free. But it was real frustrating because that was a nice rifle, and it was a one shooter when I got it. So not what I wanted.
Yeah. And all things that you want to sort out while you're at home, before you pack up your gear, before you get committed on that hunt, because it's just, that's the time when you can fix it, right, and do something about it.
Yeah. And, you know, guys, I know some of us spend a lot of time and money on our hunts and prepping for our hunts. And it's just, if you can make your ammunition not a problem, that is so much nicer.
Absolutely. Yep. And then, so wrapping it all up.
Hand load for reliability.
Yep.
I will put reliability ahead of accuracy or maximum velocity in a hunting rifle. Now, I still want accuracy and I still want good power, but it has to go bang. It has to feed, it has to go bang, it has to eject even a loaded round. I learned that one. And get what you want. We talked about that a little bit before we got the camera rolling here. Make the ammo to fit your needs, and you may have a young shooter, you may have a recoil sensitive shooter. I've done that. I've downloaded some ammunition that worked just fine, but a whole lot less recoil than that shooter was. They were getting beat up by their own rifle, and I said, no, it doesn't have to kick that much.
Or if you have a 308 and it's threaded and you have a suppressor and you really want to go subsonic, absolutely can do that.
Yes.
Because you're a hand loader. if I want to take my 6.5 Carcano hunting and I want to use a 143 ELDX 6.5 bullet, I can totally do that because I'm a hand loader.
Right.
So it's really empowering to be able to hand load because, you know, yes, you can save money. To me, it's more about getting what you want and when you want it.
Yeah.
Of course, if you've got primers, we all know that has been...
That's been tough.
Yeah. But for hunting ammo, you're likely to be able to scrap up 100 primers, right? It's not like
more likely than coming up with thousands of them for match shooting.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So that's and that's my philosophy is I rarely load more than 50 or 100 in a year for the hunting rifles I'm going to use.
Yeah.
Do a lot of marksmanship practice with my 22s and load up enough to get familiar with my rifle and my load.
And that's the other half of the equation. It's kind of like the SAMI print. The SAMI print has the specification for the ammunition itself, and then on the bottom it has the specification for the chamber. So the other half of this equation is the rifle itself. Some rifles are geared more towards competition and extreme precision. That can come at the cost of reliability in certain circumstances. Some PRS rifles have very tight-fitting bolts and receivers bodies, right? And a little bit of dust gets in there, it's gonna maybe not function or function, you know, kind of jagged. So, you know, the rifle, the ammunition, I consider it a system.
Absolutely.
It kind of goes together, and you gotta kind of like the feeding, you know, make sure that you have the right cartridge overall length, that it's gonna actually feed with the profile of the bullet and everything all together. Because what you want is to think about the hunting and not, oh, is this gonna work, or am I gonna have a problem with this, you know? All of that.
Yeah, I saw some rifles get that dust problem when I was teaching at the SWAT sniper course, and we had people on the line with old beat up Remington 700s with the real sloppy bolts.
Right.
They never jammed. Never.
Yep.
And we had people with very expensive sniper rifles, and when the fine silty dust got to flying around out there on the range, one by one they stopped working. Yeah, it was a little surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was the guys from the old Podunksville PD out there with their 20-year-old Remington 700 were still banging away.
No problem. Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, I'll just hose it off with the garden hose later. You know?
Yep.
It was pretty funny.
Well, we wish you the best of luck this season, and we'd like to know what you think about and what you consider and what you do when you load hunting ammunition. Drop a comment and we'll start a discussion. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. If you're interested in custom rifles like what we build here on the channel or gunsmithing services, you're going to want to go to rifles.ultimatereloader.com and get on the wait list. If you're interested in becoming a professional gunsmith, check out the Sonoran Desert Institute. They've got a degree program, they've got a certificate program, and you can study from home. Learn more at sdi.edu. Thanks again for watching.